Hello, beautiful. How are you doing? So, this morning I was trying to think, what do I want to come and talk about? And I was looking at all my notes because I write all the time. I get all this inspiration and I write. And I was looking at my notes and thinking, yeah, this is a good message. This is important. I could talk about this. But my problem is that I always need to talk about something I'm thinking or feeling in the moment. And as many notes as I make, like reams, I never go back to them because, anyway. And also, part of my process this morning that was like a skewed, not the way I want to do thing process, was trying to think, well, I had some popular videos. How do I capitalize on that? How do I follow the same ideas so that I keep my public or the algorithm recognizes me? And I was trying to come up with ideas to fit into the system and respond to how things are supposed to get done. And that's going to be maybe one day a subject for an entire other video. But then I stopped myself and said, whoa, I do not want to play that game. I don't accept that programming, the system that's being imposed upon me. So I put everything away. I went inside myself and I asked my guides, my higher self, God, okay, listen, I need something here that I'm going to feel. And whether it's meant, whether it falls into what I think is going to be picked up, it doesn't matter. I just need inspiration. So I told them, uh, I'm going to go on my phone and please let a sentence, a meme, somebody showing up, a short, something that's going to inspire me. And lo and behold, it happened. I turned on my phone, looked, and the first short that there was on Instagram was a short by Jamila Jamil, the actress. And she was talking about social anxiety. And she was saying, people told me I was diagnosed with social anxiety. And at some point she wondered, well, do I? Do I have social anxiety or is there something else going on? She's saying, or am I bored? And she was talking about how when we don't fit in social situation and social anxiety, we wonder, what's wrong with me? How come I can't have fun with other people like other people do? For most of us who are deeply aware or highly sensitive, we thrive and we do enjoy social situations, but we need more one-on-one. We need depth and meaning. Once we have real connection, we're energized, we're excited. And we get so excited, I know I do, that after having a nice evening with a girlfriend where it was fun, we laughed, we cried, we talked about real things, we were silly, we were deep, I can't sleep after because I'm like, wow, this was so delicious and filled me so much. Anyway, so the thing is, social anxiety or not, I think the idea, and that what Jamila was sharing, is that most of us, many of us, don't actually have social anxiety. We get anxious when we are bored or when we feel like we're trapped in a situation or in a conversation that we don't want to have, where we don't feel comfortable. And when don't we feel comfortable? When it's something that's happening on the surface. Because highly sensitive people, empaths, deeply aware, you who feel everything and are attracted to this kind of discussion, we are creatures of the depth. Think of the ocean here. We are the ones that are these weird little creatures that populate the deep. We have our lights, we have our habits, we have our community, and that's what we were created, how we were designed, where we were created to live and be who we are. And when we get into social situation, we are asked to go to the surface and to try to coexist and interact with all the denizens of the surface that have a complete other makeup. So, you know, if we told the people on the surface, the creatures of the surface, hey, come on down, to my world down here in the depth of things, and let's have tea, and you will see how I'm like a fish in water, right? Because this is where I belong. So when we're on the surface, it doesn't feel natural because it's not our natural environment. So, of course, we feel anxious. But it doesn't mean that we're suffering from social anxiety. We're just not in our natural environment. And it made me think of, I kind of went to other thoughts that kind of connected to this too. It's like the idea of being told that we are too sensitive. I mean, think about it. Too sensitive. According to whom? According to what norm? According to what who says? Like, people of the surface. For people of the surface, we are indeed too sensitive. But it doesn't mean that there's anything wrong with us. We just perceive a lot. And it's the same idea with when many of us are accused of thinking too much. It's like, really? Again, according to whom? What is thinking too much? It's more that I like to say that we don't think too much. We are thorough thinkers. Because when we have this ability to perceive and feel and just connect to the subtle, and we have all this influx of information, we actually, oh man, I forgot my train of thought. Hang on a minute. Think too much, thorough thinker. Right, it's not that we think too much, it's that we are processing a ton of information, and it takes us a moment, and we have the ability to see things from multiple angles. And so we don't think too much. We have the ability, we perceive a lot. So when we have a thought or a situation is in our surrounding, we have all these things to think of. It's not like we stay on one plane. We have like these multiple dimensions that we perceive, and it's like, whoa, give me a second. I need to think about all of this. And it's the same idea with when we're told, as I have often been told, that I'm too complicated. Yes, being redundant, but too complicated according to whom? To people who don't have the ability to feel deeper layers, people who can't see things, like I said, from more multiple angles. We are not too complicated. We see the complexity of the world. We're not too complicated. We're gifted with that ability. And the only people that it makes uncomfortable are the people who don't have that ability. We live below the surface. It's just our natural habitat. People on the surface, there's also nothing wrong with it. They have a purpose, a life, a reason in the ecosystem of everything, but they're just on a different place. So we just have to remember that we're not weak and we're not defective for feeling too much, thinking too much, being too sensitive, for being different. We are not weak and defective. We are actually strong and high functioning individuals. And it's really important for us to remember that. Again, not again, but let's take pride in that. Let's give it some thought, give it some feeling. Who we are, there is absolutely nothing wrong. And if we still have the ability to feel as much as we do, as much as sometimes we'd like to feel and think a little bit less, I'll give you that. But we are actually, it is actually that we have not yet been assimilated. because the world we live in really right now, the power and the big game, the game in front, is the one that's being played out at the surface. And yes, I think that that dimension, kind of, we're disruptors, and it would be much better if we conformed, and if we were broken down, which we almost are, but we're not, because we're still allowing ourselves to feel. But anyway, it just, we have not been assimilated, we have not conformed, and who we are is perfect the way it is. We don't have social anxiety. We're anxious when we're in the wrong place. We're not too sensitive. We feel a lot. We don't think too much. We are thorough thinkers. We're not too complicated. We have the ability to perceive the complexity of the world around us and the situations and our surroundings. So, kind of the morale of the story is that we must stop the finger pointing. And for us, we have to stop accepting the negativity of the finger pointing. Our differences are good, and in the world, differences are good. And what we need to learn to do is open our heart, and it goes both ways too, to open our minds and our hearts to the environment and the world other people live in. We were all put somewhere in the ecosystem of humanity. We all have a role, we all have a place, we all have a purpose. So let's try to avoid the labeling and the finger pointing and putting down people who are different than who we are. So before I say goodbye for today, I'm going to read a portion of my book, because my book, a small part, because my book is precisely that, actually. It's a memoir that I wrote as a diary, day after day. I wrote about what life looks like as a person who is deeply aware and highly sensitive before I knew the word and the label of HSP and all these things. And I wrote it because I felt it was important to show what moving through life looks like as a person who was designed that way in the society in which we live today. And I like to say that I did it like I was willing to do it. Like, you remember the movie The Truman Show, where Jim Carrey was living under a dome and everybody was watching without him knowing, and he thought reality was his little dome life? Well, my book is like the True Woman Show. And I agreed, I consented willingly to put myself under the dome for the truth of what life looks like when you're a person like us. So I'm going to read just a little part that speaks about that. How this book came to be. Oh yeah, by the way, this is the book. Oop. Okay, that's better. How this book came to be. The chronicles you're about to read were written from the trenches, before victory skewed the story and revised history. The timing and circumstances couldn't have made less sense. I was, after all, in the trenches. Not the best of time for a literary endeavor. This was a time to be practical, a time to sensibly tend to my dire financial situation and challenging health, a time for me to live in the real world instead of listening to a calling. But there was a calling, and an inconvenient whisper, and a persistent, annoyingly persistent murmur saying, "Annie, write your story now. It's important." As I grappled with this idea, I came to understand that now was the key. Now meant while I was searching for the real me, the one with a purpose and a voice of her own. Now meant while everything was not sorted out, and the cavalry was nowhere in sight, if one was even coming. Now, because it would allow others to read about a journey that looked like theirs, a roughly stitched patchwork of hopes and doubts, fears and bravery, virtues and flaws, leaps forward and steps backwards, wisdom, imperfect faith, and shiny sequins of ridicule. As you know, most inspiring life stories are written after the fact, once the dust has settled and the authors have regained their composure. These stories are usually written through the lens of hindsight while comfortably sailing aboard the happy ending. They are inevitably sanitized and rearranged. The real-time edge and untidiness expertly recreated in post-production. I think before I end my book there, sorry. And expertly recreated in post-production. Not that there's anything inherently wrong with that strategy. Having a clear, premeditated narrative arc is actually quite sensible. Not knowing the storyline of your story is a serious impediment to the process of writing a book. And wisdom is typically gleaned through the passing of time. Also, it's easier to say what I went through wasn't pretty than, look here, I'm a splendid mess. Although these stories move and uplift us, they can also leave us wondering, where did your mind go day by day? How did you get through the simple things of a day in the life? What inconvenient thoughts were either forgotten or left on the cutting room floor? Now more than ever, that's what we need to hear. We need more than tidy stories. We need to hear about the mess, because the world is a mess. And if we're honest, we're kind of a mess too. We need to hear about the scribbly doodles of the journey to the truth of who we are, and to be reminded that the quest for our true selves isn't linear. Stories and teachers and teachings that lead us to believe in such linearity often leave us feeling inadequate, like something's wrong with us, like we should be further along in the manifestation of our highest destiny. In other words, shame and shade are subtly thrown, and I'm not okay with that. So I'm here to tell you it's safe to exhale. You're not alone. Proof resides within the pages of this book. What we also need to be reminded of is how magnificent we are in all the small, heroic ways of our everyday lives. In how we rise in our minds and our deeds in the middle of our human muddle. How we find wisdom while on the go, God in a tiny flower, a moment's peace in the midst of chaos, an ember of hope in times of darkness. This is the story I'm here to share. In answering the calling, I chose to step into the arena, day after day, naked, but for the shield of a few strategically placed fig leaves covering my most vulnerable parts. I chose to allow my inner ramblings to be heard and outer fumbles to be seen, along with those blessed occasions when grace, joy, resilience, and humor set my soul aglow. I did this gutsy thing because I believe there is a huge, beautiful tribe of people whose journey to connect with their inner hero looks and sounds remarkably similar, and that it is only in daring to reveal ourselves that we will recognize each other and discover that we belong. And so I offer you my splendid mess. So that's part of the introduction. I thought I'd share that with you today. I love you. I will see you soon.